Hey everybody, it's Anna and welcome back to my booktube channel. You're getting this video a little bit early because this week I'm traveling out of town to go be in a friend's wedding, but as you guessed, probably this is going to be my geekly wrap-up from October 21st through October 27th. This week I'm so tired. This week I read 5 books and I played a whole bunch of board games at a local meetup event. So let's go ahead and do the books real quick first. The first book that I finished this week was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I'm sure I don't need to tell you too much about this book because you've heard me talk about it, you've heard all of BookTube talk about it, and I will say this, I adored this book. I remember being a little bit apprehensive going into it because I knew it was supposed to be pretty dark and disturbing. And indeed it is. This definitely contains trigger warnings for rape, murder, sexual assault, date rape, and heavy drug use. So be aware of that. If you're sensitive to all of those things, they do happen explicitly and on the page. So that's important to know going in. But what I really loved about this story was how much it was a story of survivorship and how much I really resonated with Alex's character as somebody that has seen some pretty deep shit and is still somehow able to use the things that she has learned from what would otherwise be very negative life experiences to survive and to really become powerful herself and to be like a guardian of ancient lore and knowledge and be able to take care of the other people in her life that she finds are most vulnerable. So again, because the story is kind of a murder mystery, I don't want to give too much of the plot away, but I absolutely adored this book. I rated it 5 out of 5 stars, and I think it's going to be on my best books of 2019 when I get to the end of the year. Then I finished a book that I have been reading for almost the entire month. I don't know why it's taken me so long to get through this book, because it was charming and delightful, and that is The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite. This is an adult historical romance novel that is also queer as heck, and it is about 2 lady scientists, Catherine and Lucy, in the early Victorian era who fall in love and basically overcome the forces of sexism of their time to get their scientific discoveries published in papers. This was really adorable. It was really sweet. I thought that my favorite thing in romance novels is the emotional intimacy that the characters have, because that's the sexy thing to me, and this book had that aplenty. I know that these characters will probably be returning because I believe Olivia Waite is going to be writing a second novel in what is called her Feminine Pursuits series, which is these historical queer lady romance novels. So I will definitely be interested in picking that up. I think I originally picked this up because I heard a lot of people talk about it and because there's a local book club in town that was reading this as their romance pick for the month. Next month, when I can actually go to the meeting, they're discussing Well Met, which again was one of my favorite books that I read last month, so I'm really excited to check that out. Then I finished up 2 books that I read for the Disability Readathon. I've already talked about these a little bit, so I won't go into too much detail, but that was The Girl Aquarium, which is a poetry collection by Jen Campbell, and Body Map, which is also a poetry collection by Leah Lakshmi Piepzna Samarasinha. I really enjoyed and appreciated both of these books. I thought that Jen's book was very haunting in the way that it described some of the fears and anger that young girls have, the young girls who are the speakers in her poems have about being uncertain about their place in the world, being rejected by other people because they are different, and finding community with other people who are misfit like them. I really enjoyed this collection of poetry, and I believe it is because it is her first collected work of poetry. You can actually really see how she's evolved as a writer since the beginning of when she started writing some of these poems and then the sophistication that they get to later on. So I really enjoyed this. And then Body Map was amazing. You know that I love this author very much. I wanted to read this book, I wanted to read both of them for the Disability Readathon because both of the authors are disabled or have bodily difference or something like that. And also, I wanted to read poetry for it, and I wanted to read poems that actually explicitly talked about disability and things related to disability. This is Leah Lakshmi Piepzna Samarasinha's first poetry collection. I think it was her first book, period, that actually just deals with disability topics at all. I don't think that she had written something that explicitly talked about disability before that, so I really enjoyed this. as well. I would definitely recommend it. It would also be like an interesting introduction to her work too, if you like don't really know where to start. I would say this will give you a pretty good idea of what she writes about and what topics she's interested in. And then the last book that I finished this week is His Hideous Heart, 13 of Edgar Allan Poe's most unsettling tales reimagined, including the original tales, edited by Dahlia Adler. And this book was phenomenal. I think I rated it 4 stars, but I might just have to bump it up to 5 because I really love what each of the different authors did to adapt individual Edgar Allan Poe stories. I like how they revised in some places, updated in some places, yet stayed true to the thrilling, horrible, gothic spirit of the stories. Particular ones that stood out for me were the queer retelling of Annabel Lee, which was written by... Who wrote the Annabel Lee one? By Tessa Gratton. And I also loved Marika Niekamp's retelling of Hop Frog, which is one of my favorite and also has like major themes of disability and disabled main characters, as did the original Poe story. So I really enjoyed this. It definitely reminded me that Edgar Allan Poe's stories still have the ability It reminded me that Edgar Allan Poe's stories still definitely have the ability to send shivers down my spine even when I'm rereading them after many different times, so I definitely appreciated having that to read during these longer fall nights as we head closer to Halloween. And then I have my Board Game Geek app up on my phone for the games that I played this week. So my husband and I actually went to a little local, not quite a convention, but a little bit more than just a board game meetup in one of our local game stores because Essen Spiel, which is the big international board game convention that happens in Germany every year, was this weekend, and this shop organized a little get-together for people that clearly didn't go to Germany for the convention, but still wanted to get together and play new games that are being released this weekend at the con. So we played one game called Fujikoro Deluxe. That was a prototype game, so it wasn't totally like finished and polished, and I honestly didn't really care for it even after one play. It just felt like there was too much going on, and a lot of it was distracting from whatever goal the game was actually trying to set up for us. I don't know, like, there were a lot of interesting different elements. Like, I appreciated that the game tried to get crafting mechanics into the game, and I appreciated that there was, I don't know, that was about the only thing that I thought that this game did like really differently that I was very interested in. Everything else just felt very awkward and cumbersome, like the designer maybe tried to shove too many ideas into a single box, and I think the gameplay really suffered for that. We also played a game called Cryptid, which was not new, but it was new to me, and it was really interesting because it is a game of incomplete information in which you are playing as cryptozoologists trying to find a cryptid on the map before anybody else at the table can find it. Everybody has a clue about the location of where the cryptid's habitat is, and you can go on your turn, ask questions of another player saying, is the cryptid on this location on the map? They either have to answer with a no based on the information they've been given, or a maybe based on the information they've been given. The thing about this game is that you can't lie, so it is pretty much a straight up deduction logic puzzle, but what makes it actually interesting is the fact that even though you can't lie, you can tell the truth in an unhelpful way. So you can say, all right, well, the cryptid is not there. And then when you say that the cryptid is not in a certain location, the person asking you has to put down one of their not in this location symbols. But you can choose where on the board you put that down. So you want to try and choose a place that will not give the other players more information than they necessarily need in order to find the cryptid. And that one was really interesting. I really liked the mechanic of it. I would like to play it again. We played it at kind of a larger player count. I would like to see how it scales at 2 as well, but I definitely do want to pick that up again. There was a new game called Horrified that we played a couple of times, and this is in the style of Pandemic, where it's a cooperative game, but it's all themed around fighting and defeating the various monsters from the Universal Studios monster movies. So we played a couple games of it. I feel like the first one didn't really count because we messed up a rule that made the game way too easy, so we were able to win in like 2 rounds around the table, which shouldn't have happened. The second game we played with the appropriate rules and we lost for good reason, but I did feel like we gave those monsters a good run for their money, and I do love the production value of that game. I think that it's a really great family game. I think for what it is a game that's available at Target, so it's pretty widely available, and I think that for the price point and the gameplay that you get, it's a pretty good value for your money. It's absolutely gorgeous to look at. There are these awesome 3D miniatures that are like sculpted of the various famous Universal monsters, and each of the monsters that you're trying to defeat plays totally differently. It's also pretty scalable. If you're going to be playing it at different player counts, there are ways that make the game sufficiently challenging at each player count, and then within that you can just adjust the difficulty of the monsters if you want like an easy, normal, or difficult version of the game. So would definitely play that again. I would really like to play it with my family because I think they would enjoy it. Sean and I a couple times, once just the two of us and once separately, played a game called Lovelace and Babbage, which I adored, and not just because of the amazing theme. So the premise of this game is it is a very mathy, arithmetical game where you are playing as early computer scientists and programmers from the early age of computers, hence the name Lovelace and Babbage. And it is a programming game where you are trying to take a set of different little actions, which are just mathematical operations, from a board, and you are trying to add, subtract, multiply, and divide things on your sheet in order to achieve certain numeric goals. So if you are able to get to certain numbers during your action phase, you are able to claim rewards from other cards that are available. It's a little bit harder to explain, but once you set it up, it's actually quite easy to figure out the flow of. And don't worry if you're not like super amazing at math. There are actually some elements that help you like be able to still stay in the game if you make an arithmetic mistake or something like that. I wouldn't recommend this if you like really hate math and you have zero interest in it, in which case, I'm sorry, I really love math. I wish that everyone could love math as much as I do. But for me at least, and for anybody that enjoys sort of a thinky number type puzzle, I think this would be a really interesting game. So we played that a couple times. And then the last game that we played was called Exit Plan. Exit Plan? Escape Plan. It was called Escape Plan, and it is the new game by Vital Lacerda, who is really like famous for designing complex, high-quality production board games with really strong themes in board game circles. And in this game, you are all playing as criminals that have just pulled off a huge heist, and you are playing after the heist has already happened, trying to go around a city and scoop up all of the cash from your various stash houses around the city and be the one that is able to escape from the city and flee the police with the most cash in your briefcase. You can only win if you are able to grab enough cash and get out before the police catch you and before all the exits get sealed off. So even if you have the most money in your briefcase at the end of the game, you can't win unless you're able to escape the city. And there are scenarios in which no one can win because no one gets to escape the city because you get too greedy and try and grab too much money, or the police will barricade off an exit. And this game was just stunning in every aspect of it. We were playing it with five players, which is the upper limit that the game can take, and it still ran as smoothly as a well-oiled machine. I thought that the turns were very fluid and efficient. The production quality was gorgeous. The components are made of really high-quality materials. It's very visually pleasing to look at. The iconography on the board, while it can be overwhelming at first, actually does make it easy to understand and play and strategize while you're playing the game, and I really appreciated that. Unfortunately, we did not have time to actually finish the entire game because the board game shop was closing down for the night, and so we had to cut it short, but I definitely want to pick it back up again and play it all the way through to completion. We picked up another game while we were there that we didn't have time to play, but I thought that I would mention it just because it is kind of new this week, and that is called New Bedford, a game of historic whaling and town building. If you know anything about me, you know that I love Victorian stuff, I love whales, and I really, really love ships. And this is a game where you are trying to send out all of your sailors and workers to various places in New Bedford, Massachusetts, so that you can go whaling and make money. So it's almost as if we had a like Moby Dick the board game situation going on here, and I'm super nerdy for that. So I will play that and let you know how it is. I think that's gonna go ahead and do it for this week. So as usual, if you would like to see more of this type of video, please subscribe to my channel if you have not already done so. I'm trying to get to 300 subscribers by the end of the year, so I would very much appreciate it if you could help me on my way to that goal. Also, leave a comment down below if you would like to talk with me about any of the books or games I talked about in this video. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!